a microphone there, but never mind.
It's taken us 4 hours to get ready. What are you about?
I said you dressed down, yeah. Was I right? I mean, was that really what you were after, to try and provide initially an alternative to the gloom of punk music?
No, really. I think punk was kind of a revolution against what the 70s was becoming so boring, because the 60s had kind of finished it all. And the 70s had nothing to offer young people that was anything new. Punk threw it all away, but gave us the attitude that the most important thing about being in a band was the ideas, and not how much expensive equipment you had or how fast you can play guitar. So in a way it gave birth to us, really, as a new generation.
But ideas as against image, Gary?
There were a lot of ideas. I mean, I think one of the main ideas, the ideals of the whole punk thing, was that the band should actually have control over their art, and instead of being controlled by the music industry. And, you know, we were one of the first bands to actually put that into practice by actually we had made the decision when to release singles, what our artwork was going to be, how we were represented in videos, etc.
The image thing for us is not a contrived thing, really, but it comes about the fact that this is a visual generation, and we moved pop culture into a multimedia art form that used TV and magazines creatively, just for an outlet for our ideas.
But there seems to be, John, a bit of a catch-22 about this, that you can only start to dictate what you're going to be and what you're going to do and what you're going to say once you're successful.
Not necessarily. I mean, we were one of the first bands to actually dictate to a record company. We went to the company and said, this is what we want. And now, in Britain especially, bands dictate to record companies, which is how it should be. We're the artists. They just provide the money.
But off the top, doesn't the record... Pardon?
We spend it.
You spend it. Off the top, though, isn't the record company simply going to say, listen, we know this business better than you do.
That happened when we first went, but so much, they were proved so wrong in a way, and that our ideas were so new. I mean, there was a big difference between our generation and theirs, and we grew up watching TV. That was the main thing. We had a whole load of new ideas, and we were pioneering in a new art form. And they learnt a lot from us. Now the irony is they come to us and say, how about doing this? Is the things that we told them 4 years ago. And we say, I'm sorry, things have changed. We've got new ideas now.
Yeah.
Do you find people reacting, in fact, is there a sense of pomposity about suggesting that this is a new art form? Is it a new art form?
Pop culture is an art form.
It's expanding. I think it's expanding. I think what we're doing is utilising the things that we've been used to. For instance, I think TV is one of the most important sort of art forms, and it was a natural thing to actually go into making videos and elaborate videos and trying to expand that area. And that's what we've been trying to do. It's like the music business becomes very conservative, and every now and again you need a band like ourselves, I think, to come along and suggest new ideas and try and shake it up a little bit. And, you know, that's what we've tried to do.
The main thing is that there wasn't any bands to represent young people in the 70s, really. The 60s seemed such a great time to be alive. The 70s was just a hangover of the party. So now we're back where young people, bands are fairly young again, and there's no middleman anymore. It's straight from the youth to us.
Well, did it start, as I read, did it start with the clothes, the idea of the image, of the dressed up group, and then the music followed?
We've been wearing clothes all our lives.
There'd be a parental guidance thing on the screen if we were.
No, clothes to us, and most kids, I mean, in Australia or wherever in the world, are quite natural. I mean, when you get to 12 or 13, you want to start dressing up and attracting the women.
Yes, but most of the other kids didn't. I mean, at the time that you were growing up in England...
No, that's not necessarily true. England's being a poor country. Youth culture is very important because it gives kids identity, because they haven't got necessarily material things or jobs to express themselves through. So youth culture gives them a means of self-expression. And as we were saying before, the band should just be a logical conclusion of that and expression for them.
But did you decide, look, we're going to, apart from the fact you've been wearing clothes all your life, did you decide that we're going to dress up, look good, and then the music came later?
No, it was a natural thing. I mean, it wasn't sort of, right, let's shock the world and wear some outrageous outfit. It was, you know, fashion is an ongoing thing that changes every few months, and we were just involved in that before we were even in a band, and it was a very natural thing for us.
We're not talking about sort of middle-class bourgeois fashions. We're talking about the kind of fashion that makes a black kid in Harlem who can't afford to buy expensive clothes, but that kind of fashion that gives him a uniform so he can be identified with other people, other peers.
Yes. And I mean, that's not cheap.
And that was what the same. That was the same. It's the same. It's street fashion,
isn't it? I mean, when we were kids, I mean, we used to save our pocket money up and buy things like Ben Sherman shirts, which were very fashionable at the time. I mean, it's really just pooling your resources together. You know, your aunts send you a £5 every Christmas or whatever, and you save it for a while and then buy a nice outfit.
It's not the only thing. I think the thing is, young people just look for a means of self-expression. They can't necessarily find it in a job, or even in material things, but they find it in maybe in some ridiculous coloured clothes they wear, the way they cut their hair, or sport, or music, or even starting a family, but just anything to express themselves through. And pop culture is the most immediate way and the best thing for young people to do that in.
It's also very much a rebellion thing, especially against your sort of parents and that when you're about 15, 16, you know, you're under your parents' wing for such a long time and you want to kind of break away from that. And getting into sort of, you know, into a particular fad, whether it be, you know, punk or whatever, you know, it sort of alienates you slightly from your parents.
Well,
but
I can't
it gives you
imagine
that sense of individuality, which
I can't
think is
imagine you'd
important.
be, I mean, looking like this, you'd be alienated from your parents as against a skinhead or a punk or someone like that. I mean, the kids, I would imagine
should
parents
have
would
seen
love
me
to
a few
see
years
it.
Well, you just saw the first video, us wearing skirts. I mean,
No, believe me, my mum's chased me down the street a few times.
You're not going out like that.
Yeah. What sort of, how have I brought you up in all this business? Yeah.
Really? Were you musos before you hit the scene? Were you,
Yeah.
We dabbled, yeah. I mean, Gary's been writing stuff, you know, since he was, you know, 10 and 11, and everyone sort of dabbled. When the idea came about, you know, it was, yeah, let's do it, you know.
I think we've proven ourselves as musicians playing live now. But the thing is, for us, I mean, I get just as much buzz out of a camera, I mean, operating a camera, as I do out of operating a guitar. They're just different languages to use, to say things.
Do you think especially the video clips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, video clips for us aren't promotional devices, they're creative devices. They're, you know, we can say so much in a video about a song as we can on a record.
And also, we're the directors, which is the most important thing.
Can you believe people actually pay you to have this fun?
It's nice, isn't it?
What about you? You mentioned your mums earlier. Your mum's proud of
Yeah.
the working class boys made good now?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're our biggest fans as usual. They've got all the platinum records on the album, on the wall. So,
Do they say it's nice to see you dressing proper?
Well, I think sometimes they disagree with what we wear. They still have a go at us, but yeah,
I don't think
they're
they like
proud.
reading about some of the sordid lifestyle that we lead in the national newspapers in
It's
England
not
now and
true. It's
again.
not true.
Tell us about the sordid lifestyle.
Read the newspaper. Listen, I'll invite you to the next party, don't worry, Ray. I know we can buy the company.
How do you stay? Obviously, at one stage it was faddish. I mean, the attention, you got attention because you were different.
Yeah.
How do you stay one step in front of them?
make good music.
Yeah, I think we're, you know, sort of forever trying to be original. It's very easy for bands, especially when you get to our position, to kind of formularise your music and what you actually do, that, you know, all the things that surround that. And we've always tried to look at things differently and be very open-minded and just try and be original. I think that's why we've maintained the fans from the early days and also expanded that.
Also,
I don't think-
I think playing live is very important. I mean,
Yeah.
to get over to Australia now and to actually meet the kids who've been buying our records for 4 years, that sort of contact is very important for a band's longevity.
That's the most important thing. I mean, also, someone said to me the other night he thought the production was quite big in the entertainment centre. Well, I actually think the production looked big because it was the entire place. You know, it included 11,500 people. That was our production because everyone was up and everyone was part of it. I also think that the other thing is not to become some sort of egotistical recluse like your Rod Stewarts of this world, but to still try and keep your feet on the ground and to make your influences relevant.
I was going to ask you, how you do that. The fact is that now you're very, very successful. Now you need the entourage, you need the bodyguards, you need these things. I mean, is it possible, without being coy, is it possible to go back and see mum and dad, to go back and see the
God,
boys in the
yeah.
block?
Yeah, I mean, when we do get back to London, we do pretty sort of reasonably ordinary things anyway. I still like going to restaurants and...
It's hard
out
though. I
seeing
mean, yeah. I
friends.
mean, things are different, you know. But
It's not as easy as it was.
much
I
as
mean,
you can.
do tend to get a lot of attention from people in the street. You know, you walk down and people are twisting their necks backwards to say, God, is that Tony Hadley that just went
Yeah, I
by?
thought you looked much better than that.
All right, you mentioned video clips. Let's take a look at just of your latest video clip. Now, you were all involved in the British Ethiopian record, the Band Aid record. Were you happy with what's happened to that?
Yeah.
very much so.
I think the thing is that we all pay a lot of money in taxes, but I don't think personally agree in the way it's distributed. I don't approve of the way the government spend their money so much. So it was our opportunity to, a time when more money is made by the record industry than any other time of the year, to make sure that the majority of that money went to a cause that was apolitical and that was also worthwhile.
Yes, I was going to say, I wonder whether we've had lots of reports.
There
of
he
course,
is. Just to prove he was on it.
reports since then that the money isn't going necessarily to the people
No,
in
it
need.
is.
Midge and Bob have
they
been
been
out in
organising it?
Africa actually making sure it gets in people's mouths which has been their ethic all the way through. And you know, I mean, they've been fantastic. I mean, most of the credit should go to Bob Geldof for actually getting the thing together.
What did you think when Bob first contacted you?
Well, I thought it was impossible. I mean, I thought the cause was good, and I said, yeah, we're very sympathetic to it, but we're actually going to be in Japan when it's happening. He rang me 3 times in Japan, and then I said, well, look, I'm going to go to Germany now to do a TV show. We was going to do a TV show with Duran Duran. So we was in Germany, he rang again in Germany. So I said, are we going to get back to England to do it in time? So we actually rented a private plane, and we got there. But it was only the enthusiasm of Bob's that you thought, well, this has got to come together now. And when we arrived on that Sunday morning, and every major ego in British pop music was in that room together, it was an amazing thing. You know, all the sort of superficial bitchiness that goes on in the music business was all sort of made to look very stupid. You know?
Yeah, we actually found out we got on very well together. I think one of the nice things about that was that in our position, yeah, we are financially well off. But it was nice that everyone got together and pulled their resources and their talents and actually did something that was going to help other people. I think it's the first time that, you know, something as big as that has ever happened.
And we raised more money than the British government. So.
Yeah.
They were the only people who made money out of that record, actually.
Yes,
British government.
yes, it's an extraordinary venture, actually, and a great one to pull it off. Now, you've finished in Sydney, but you've got 3 more capitals to go to?
Brisbane.
4.
Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth, Melbourne. Yeah, that's right. In that order.
And then we're actually coming back to Sydney for some time off because we need to do some writing. We've been touring since beginning of November, and you know, you don't get a lot of opportunities to write, so we're going to spend some time in Sydney because it's a nice place.
All right, thanks for your time, and thanks for your comments. Would you please thank the audience? We saw that clip from the British Band Aid